Hey, what's up and good morning. This is Al, aka Fishing with Big Al, and welcome to the channel. Yesterday, went out, had a good time over at the jetties. We ran into some sheep's head. I'll post that video a little later. But anyway, I wanted to take the time to, while it's on my mind, to get it out there. Yesterday, went over there fishing. I seen a lot of people getting hung up, right? A lot of people come from different areas, and you got the locals. We fish the jetties and we know it like the back of our hand. A lot of us that fish it, and we have strategies, ways to keep from losing our tackle, knowing the spots that are hot on the jetties, where you can say, if I go here, I got a better chance of catching fishing here than I would over here. So we know some of those places like the back of our hand. We also know the places where you don't cast, because there's a lot of stuff on the bottom that can grab your line. If you know things, lost nets, line that people have just left out there, and you get hung up on it. So some of that stuff still exists, and you just say, okay, I'm not even gonna take that chance. But anyway, people yesterday were using the Carolina rig. Whether they were using it with the store-bought brand or they were making them themselves, they were still getting hung up. We had 3 to 4 foot swells yesterday. The water was crashing against the rocks pretty good. And when that happens, you're going to have a lot of situations where you're not able to catch fish because you're constantly getting hung up. How does that happen? Well, that is because you're using a Carolina rig a lot of times. The Carolina rig is, if you don't know what the Carolina rig is, if you take this line right here, right, and imagine that you got a swivel, right, tied off at the end right here, and then this line is coming down, and you're going to have your hook right there on the very bottom end of it, right? Whether you do them from the store or you make them yourself, that is still going to be a Carolina rig. So the Carolina rig is going to move that line. The weight is going to go down, and it's going to bog itself on the bottom of the floor, right, when you cast it out. The line that is coming off, though, that line is going to move around. It's going to move, right? Whether you like it or not, it's going to move. It's going to sway from the bottom with the current and the waves pushing it. It's going to do what it does. A lot of fishermen, especially when they're trying to catch sheep's head, they go with the Carolina rig. And a lot of times when they're doing that, you get hung up, because where are the sheep's head? They're going to be around the rocks. And if you're in a dead spot where you're not hardly seeing any sheephead being caught, a lot of times when you go to retrieve your line, it's lodged. The hook has found a rock, and when you come up on it, it digs in, it breaks off. And the reason why it's more of the hook than it is the weight, you ever notice when you, if you make your own, like I do, if I'm using my mono and it gets hung up, I get my weight back. My weight comes back. The hook breaks. It breaks at the end, and it's caught up on the rocks. So there you go. But I got a method that you can use, right? And it's not new. It's not new, but it is something that a lot of fishermen, and I know they don't know it, because if they did, they'll be doing it, right? So that's why I'm putting it out, why it's on my mind. This method right here, right, is simple. This is just taking any size egg that you want to use as a slip, and you put this on top. You see that right there? There's my detachable swivel clamp, right? This is the method I like to use, and the reason why I like to use it is because it keeps my fish from swallowing the hook. This right here kind of blocks that. So when I do catch them, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna hook them in the lip, and they don't swallow. I tried it a couple of times when I got turned on to it, because the way I seen it was, there was a hook only method where they took the hook, had it on top of the weight, had it underneath the weight, and it was just a hook. And I found that more disturbing than this right here, because when I did the hook method, what would happen is, say for instance, the sheep's head are very tricky. Sometimes they move, sometimes they don't. They just grab and they sit. So with the current yesterday, what was happening was, the current would come, and I'm sitting there, my line is getting a catenary in it. And I'm like, okay, nothing's happening. So let me go ahead and retrieve it. I come back, tighten up on my line, catch up with it. Next thing I know, boom, rod shoots down. Sheepshead was already sitting on it. Never seen it move. And because of the way the water was moving yesterday, when the swells would come and grab it, I would have all that slack in it. Sheephead was already sitting there. They just never moved. So by the time I caught up with him, I would lose my hook because he swallowed it. But when I changed it to this method, like I said, with the clamp, and just did this instead, I never lost any of my tackle inside the sheepshead mouth. I was able to get it back. Now, I can't say wholeheartedly, constantly, that that's going to be 100% able to be done, because if a red grabs it, maybe a black drum, their mouth is wide enough, maybe they can swallow the whole hook and swallow that clamp with it. Because the only other way I use it is usually when I put my clamps on, I put them up top, weight on the bottom, and that clamp is just moving around. So only thing they can do is bite into it, and I always hook them in the mouth. So that way it works. Well, I know nothing swallows it. But this right here, it hasn't been tested yet. I haven't caught a red with it yet. The other day I did hit one. He broke the line though as I was getting them in. So I don't even know if he swallowed it yet, but I know the line broke as I was bringing them across. So that method worked for the red as well. A lot of fishermen, when they're out there on the rocks, they use it, especially if you are a person that actually goes fishing on the jetties a lot. Then you'll see a lot of setups that way. And you have people ask yesterday, hey, what is that setup? What is that? And you would show them, tell them what it was. So that's why I put it up, because people didn't know, and people were asking questions like, hey, what does that do? And I said, it just basically keeps me from getting hung up a lot. It minimizes hangups compared to the Carolina rig. I love Carolina rig, but the only thing I like the Carolina rig for is when I'm long casting. If you're fishing around the rocks with a Carolina rig, you can do a split shot. It doesn't matter. For some reason, them hooks just seem like they find, it's a tail. So it's going to be moving around. And if you're fishing close to the rocks, 9 times out of 10, it's going to move around. And when you pull up on it or whatever you're doing, it's going to probably get hung up. Another thing I recommend is if you're not used to fishing jetties, and this is if you're trying to teach your kids on how to fish when they're fishing the jetties, right? One of the things you always want to do is, if you don't have a fish on your line, don't snatch. Just pick your reel up and start reeling. And don't stop. Reel, if it's free, keep reeling. Don't stop. Right? And if it does get lodged in, don't put no pressure on it. Just stop right there, right then and there. One of the methods you can use is you can take your fingers and then just pop your line. Keep popping it. It works sometimes. I'm not going to say it's 100% proof, but a lot of times if it's stuck, it's stuck. But a lot of times you can just pop it, and for some reason it frees it. I learned that some years back, and when I remember it, I do it. Like I said, man, no matter how old you get, you always learn something new, because the fishing game changes constantly. There's always something new of a way of how you do this. And this is not new. This is something that's old. The only way I know about it, I seen somebody do it, and then I reflected. And I had a guy when I was a kid, and we used to go fishing with them. This is what he would do. He would constantly take his slip weight, hook, and cast it out. I mean, this is in the river. He's doing this. And light tackle, and everybody else fishing with 6s, everybody else fishing with 7s and 8s, things like that. Not 7s, but 6s, 5s, and 8s, right? And we're throwing pyramids. He's throwing light tackle. He's fishing with us, and he's throwing light tackle. And I mean, he's pulling out nice. Back then, it used to be perch. A lot of big perch we used to catch in the rivers in the Mississippi and St. Louis, and that was our fish we loved to eat back then. That's like the black drum. We used to love eating the perch. That was what we fished for. But we were used to trying to hold our lines in the river. And when he would go with us, we'd be like, man, why are you using that light tackle in the river? You ain't gonna be able to keep your line straight, right? These 6s barely holding. I kid you not. That dude used to pull in a lot of fish. A shout out to Lou. He was one of my OGs back in fishing, back in St. Louis, back in the days growing up. And and if he see the video, he probably won't remember it, but I do, because I always keep in tune with something that when I see it happen, I'm like, I can't believe he was wearing them fish out like that with that light tackle in the Mississippi River. So that sticks out in my mind. But anyway, showing it again. This is the setup, right? You can do it with this if you feel comfortable. If you want to do it, me, myself, I do it. I love doing it this way. I'll even long cast with this and still have great results with catching fish, right? It's not just something I do around the rocks. I still do a long casting as well. And I test it out just to see if it does work, or do I need the Carolina rig? A lot of times I got all kind of different ways I rig my line, but this is one of the best right here when you just want to say, hey, I don't feel like losing my tackle. So this is a good one. So anyway, with that said, this is Al. I'm out. Y'all be safe out there. Enjoy your fishing. And y'all know what it is. Fish on, baby. And I'll see you out there. So if we see each other, chop it up, talk. I've run across some people that have subscribed to my channel. So it's all good, man, in the meeting. So again, we all having fun. We all brothers and sisters out there. And we just want to enjoy ourselves. So make it happen when you're around each other. With that said, I'm out. Y'all be good. Peace.